This is a presentation of my frequency synthesizer project based on the 1496 mixer chip. The inputs to the mixer consist of a crystal oscillator that has a 3.12 megahertz crystal and a 10 megahertz crystal that are jumper selectable. The other input is a varactor tuned Hartley oscillator that also has two tuning ranges of 3 megahertz and about 4 megahertz. The varactor tuning is also has a narrow tuning band and a wide tuning band, also jumper selectable. The output of the mixer chip contains the sum of the two inputs and the difference between the two inputs. The board is currently configured for the difference signal by passing that signal into a low-pass filter and amplifying that signal in an audio amplifier that drives a half-watt speaker. As I increase the frequency of the Hartley oscillator above the crystal frequency, the audio frequency increases. And as the Hartley oscillator gets closer to the crystal frequency, the audio frequency decreases. Currently, the Hartley oscillator is tuned very close to the frequency of the 3.12 megahertz crystal. In order to access the sum of the two frequencies, I detach the low-pass filter from the output of the mixer and attach a band-pass filter to the output of the mixer. And I'm also adding in the jumper to select the wide tuning range on the varactor diodes. Now when I turn on the system, you can hear the mixer at 6.24 megahertz in the receiver, in my shortwave receiver. The bandpass filter is tuned to the 6.24 megahertz, and the level of the output of the bandpass filter can be seen as 1.86 volts on the voltmeter. Now I'm going to determine the bandwidth of the tuning range by walking up the band. Where is it? And that's the maximum tuning range of the varactor tuning of the Hartley oscillator. But we can also see the dip down the slope of the bandpass filter. Now, I will select the 4 megahertz tuning of the Hartley oscillator. The 3.12 megahertz plus the 4 megahertz is about 7 megahertz. and I'll tune the receiver to 7 megahertz. And now I have to tune the bandpass filter for the 7 to peak at the 7 megahertz. Which is about right there. Maybe a little bit back a little bit more. Yeah, there it is. And there's the signal. It's not exactly a 7, it's a little bit lower than 7, but for demonstration purposes. I can tune this. You can hear the 7 megahertz in the receiver. Now the next segment is I'm going to select the 10 megahertz crystal, and the 10 megahertz plus the 4 megahertz is 14 megahertz. It won't be exactly 14, but it'll be close enough for demonstration purposes. What happened? Oh, I hit the timer. And I want to get to 14 megahertz. Maybe I'll try getting the other. The tuning is very touchy on the bandpass filter. Now we can hear the output of the mixer in the receiver, but the signal is very, very small, and the maximum range is about 10 feet, so it's not interfering with anything else. I can't find it now. Oh, there it is. Okay, there it is. You can kind of hear it in there. There it is. You can just barely hear it. It's a very weak signal, but I can get it to squeal. There it is. So that's the 14 megahertz signal. Now during my testing, I found these are the frequencies in tuning ranges that I was able to get. Let's see if I can get this here. Yes. The tuning was from the 6 megahertz was 6.24 to 6.33, and the number below is the filter amplitude. The 7 megahertz I was able to get to 7.122 with those filter information, and the 14 megahertz I was able to tune up to 14.177. And you can see that the wider tuning range, that the bandpass filter dropped off quite a lot. If I were going to make this into a ham radio, for instance, it would require more filtering. I would tune the filter to the center of the band, and I would tune the Hartley oscillator so that the low frequency was inside the bottom of the required band of the band. Like the 7 megahertz, it wouldn't be at 7 megahertz, it would be like 7.1 megahertz. And the 14 would be at 14.1 megahertz. Okay, thank you for watching.